style events that we've been running for the last couple of weeks, and kind of update the platform that we're running. So this week we're changing it up again. We are actually bringing in one of our LUMIX ambassadors, and going to kind of give you guys an introduction to who he is, see what kind of processes or kind of projects he's working on rather, and really get to know what one of our ambassadors, what a professional photographer does out in the market. So with that, I'm going to bring Joseph, who some of you may know as Photo Joseph, onto the stream here. How's it going, Joseph?
Pretty good, Sean. Thank you. How you doing?
Can't complain. Getting a little cooped up at home these days. It's talking into a camera instead of talking face to face with people. But how are you doing?
I'm doing remarkably well. I have to say I'm pretty fortunate in that I've got my studio space where I am now that I can come to every day. Since I work here alone, I don't have to follow the quarantining rules here and stay home. So that is helping a lot. Although, we have a 5-year-old, and so his school, of course, is closed, which means he's home. My wife is working from home, so we've been splitting days where my kid comes to work with me for half the day and then goes home for half the day. It's nothing quite like having a 5-year-old running around a production studio.
Well, I mean, come on, excitement, new things, new challenges, right?
Right. New meaning to the word. What was that sound? What was that?
Oh no, what broke? So it sounds like not much has changed, but for those who may not know who you are, give us a little background on who you are, what you do, and what you do for Panasonic or for Panasonic LUMIX.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Photo Joseph. That's the name everybody knows me by online. I have a long history in photography, and we can certainly talk about that if you'd like, but I've been doing independent photography and video production for a little over a decade now. And this is kind of the culmination of that right now. I've got this studio that I work out of, and where I started in still photography, as technology evolved and as the market demand grew and changed, I started doing more and more video production. And these days it's probably 95% video production. I don't do that many still photos anymore these days. That said, someone did just drop off some products for me to shoot. So, occasionally there's stuff like that shows up, but mostly it's video production. Yeah. And then the YouTube channel is a big part of it. So I've been really my whole career, I've been really big on education, trying to help others to learn, teaching other people how to do things. And the YouTube channel has been a really great avenue for that. It's been kind of the best way for me to get that out and get it out to more and more people. I've got training on my own website at photojoseph.com. I'm an author on LinkedIn Learning, which of course has formerly lynda.com, which of course has a huge following as well. But it's been great to have my own message, my own channel, my own path to be able to do that. And that's where I've been putting really the vast majority of my energy. It doesn't make the money to replace everything else. So it's a slow process, as anybody who does YouTube knows, but that has really been the focus for the last couple of years, trying to grow that to make it a real part of the business. Nice.
So yeah, I mean, for those that have followed, I know there's a ton, a huge following on your YouTube channel. Could you give us a little info on what you do on that channel? Because that was kind of one of the inspirations for me in wanting to get into doing this, especially with LUMIX and ways we can reach new customers. So give a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Info. Yeah, and I realized I didn't answer your question about Panasonic and my involvement with that, so I'll come back to that too. But the idea of the LUMIX channel, the Panasonic, the idea of the Photo Joseph channel, I know where I am. The idea of the Photo Joseph channel was, like I said initially, just a way to educate, just to get stuff out there, to be able to talk to people and build a following and an audience there. And honestly, when it first started, it was mostly, I think, meant to be a marketing arm for the paid video training that I do. That was kind of let's just get a way to get more people to know who I am and what I'm doing so that I can sell more training. And that was years ago. But now what it is, the channel focuses on the photography and video aspect of production. And the kind of the slogan of the channel is photo and video, gear and technique. And so I try to balance between those things. I talk about still photography and video production and everything that goes into that. So it's not just cameras, it's lighting, it's microphones, it's everything that goes into that. And it's gear and technique. So sometimes I'm just talking about gear. Here's the latest widget. Here's what you can do with it. And sometimes this technique is like, here's how to light something. Here's how to mic something. Here's how this whole production aspect works. And that's where that has really grown into. And being a Panasonic ambassador, a LUMIX ambassador, which I've been now for 5 years, I think that sounds right.
Has to be longer than that,
That is,
because you were an ambassador before I even came to the company.
oh wow, okay, so it's been 6 then. Wow, time flies. It's been a lot of fun. So that, of course, as a LUMIX ambassador, the whole idea is that I'm obviously shooting LUMIX and promoting LUMIX and talking about how I use them in my production. And I'll nip this question in the bud because I know it'll come from someone in the audience. How do I get to be a LUMIX ambassador? Where do I sign up, and how do I get free cameras? And which is always a fun one to, like, that's not what it's all about. It's really about using the product and getting recognized for using the product, which is what I do. I've been shooting LUMIX for a long time, been shooting Micro Four Thirds for a really long time, and the ability to match up with a brand like Panasonic has been really wonderful, and it has provided opportunities like doing some of the videos that I do on my channel that really are very much LUMIX focused and talking about maybe a product launch or a new piece of gear that comes out, and getting to go into depth on that and become kind of a recognized voice, I guess, if you will, for the Panasonic brand, for the LUMIX brand, which has been really cool to do.
Yeah, and that was actually kind of one of the cool things when I first actually really got to work with you, was actually on one of those projects. I think it was the GX85 when we went to San Francisco. That was cool watching.
Yeah, that was the
LX10
was San Francisco. GX85 was New Orleans, which
right.
was. Yeah, that was a good shoot. That was a really good shoot. Back when we could travel places and see other people and work with crews.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on, this is still a lot of fun too, though. So.
Well, I love that I can do so much on my own in my studio, and that's, I'm very, very fortunate in the current situation in the world where everybody has to lock down and not go anywhere. I lost business and I lost work because of this, no doubt, but I was able to pick up all of that and possibly and then some, because I have this environment here where I can create productions entirely on my own. That's one of the things about being a YouTuber, is you learn how to do everything by yourself. And it's great to see bigger YouTubers who have enough income where they can justify hiring a crew, whether that's an editor or maybe shooters on set or someone to deal with light and sound. And that's incredible. And believe me, I'd love to be able to have that and to be able to afford that. But you don't start there. You get there by doing stuff on your own, and having to do everything on your own is a massive skill set. It's awesome to be able to learn how to do that, to have to learn how to do that, and to do it. But then it allows me to do things like I'm doing now, where I am producing productions for clients, doing videos for clients 100% by myself. And that's pretty special. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So with that, I think that's kind of a good segue to kind of the next question I was going to have for you. So, obviously, like you touched on, this whole current situation, being in isolation, I know there's a number of photographers and videographers out there that have either reached out directly or just even open, having conversations on the forums that are questioning, like what do I do now? I'm losing bookings. I'm either reduced or in some cases just totally out of their wheelhouse. What have you done to aside from this part, from a work product standpoint, are you seeing major differences? And if so, how have you adapted?
Sure.
Maybe customer interaction, client work. What's changed in that regard?
Yeah, well, what's changed is all location stuff is gone, right? So maybe I was going to be on a location shoot somewhere, that's gone. Of course, NAB was canceled. I was supposed to speak at NAB for, that was a big deal, right? That was a significant event for me, right? I love NAB. I always go because I meet existing clients, and meet new clients. And it's a great way to lay the ground for the following 12 months, where I will meet people there that I will work with over the next year or 2 years or 3 years on paid projects. So that's huge. I don't always have paying clients when I'm there, but this year I was supposed to. So I was supposed to be at NAB actually speaking for a couple of companies and obviously earning income off of that. So that, completely went away. There was
Yeah.
another speaking engagement coming up in London. That's actually this is now tomorrow's May, right? So it
Yeah.
was in a couple of weeks. I'm supposed to be in London. Obviously, that's not happening. So those kind of things went away, just evaporated completely. But where it's been replaced is by companies recognizing that they still need to get the word out. So
Hmm.
in some cases, it's the same companies that I was originally working with, and some it's new companies that recognize that just because the world stopped doesn't mean that they as a business have to stop or can stop showing off the products that they've been working on for the last couple of years and are getting ready to launch, or have in the pipeline, but figure that now's a really good time to start educating people on their products. Maybe they're not spending $500,000 on a trade show budget, so now they can take some of that and redirect it into marketing efforts. And some of the best marketing you can do is education.
Hmm.
And if you can educate your customer base on what your product does and provide free education to them, then what a great way to get people to be invested in your product and be interested in your product and then turn around and buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, one of the biggest kind of advantages we have as photographers, as videographers, cinematographers, is that our medium doesn't necessarily need people to be face to face with each other to consume it. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. Sure,
Exactly. That is the purpose of it. Yeah.
yeah, and sure, we're not allowed to go to movie theaters to see movies in most states, though that seems to be changing soon, for whatever reason. Um, you know, Learning how to adapt and deliver your content on different platforms, I think, is a big skill that if people are struggling with it or trying to figure out where to start, that's where checking out your live streams, going in, looking at the archive of what you have, because you've done a lot to lay out, the steps to get into this. What kind of equipment do you need? And
Sure.
I know our first one of these was on how to do live streaming, how to get rid of using just your basic webcam and kind of step it up. So, you know, tying in with everything that's going on and the way we're trying to reach out to everyone out in the market, whether you own Panasonic cameras or you're looking at it, this is one of the things that we've been trying to offer is work with people like you to help people in these times, since we can't be face to face
Sure.
anymore. So, seeing that what you've taken and built for yourself has influenced how we're doing this, has influenced how I know a lot of other photographers and videographers are adapting. So I mean, it's just like I say, it's definitely cool seeing that finally come to more mainstream
Sure.
now.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you've got live streaming has been around for quite a number of years, and it's been fun to do, and people dabble with it, and so people make entire careers out of it. But for the most part, people do it for fun as a kind of a way to just interact with your audience, which is great. And now that everybody's stuck at home, suddenly everybody wanted to figure out how to either go live or at least look a lot better on camera for all of these GoToWebinar, WebEx, Skype calls, everything else that they're having. And so YouTube is suddenly awash with people trying to figure out how to do this and how to make it look better. And unfortunately, Amazon, B&H, and all the big stores sold out of everything within minutes. It was like hotcakes to buy. You need the switchers, the HDMI to
Oh yeah.
USB converters, all that stuff just disappeared. It's starting to filter back in. But yeah, people were trying to figure out very quickly, recognizing that, whoa, okay, well, I'm going to now have meetings all day long to a camera. Probably should look a little bit better than this crappy webcam and my window in my background. And so
Oh, but
people have
come on,
started to
there's all those like fake backgrounds that can be put in a lot of these meeting conferences
Yeah.
now. The keying is great.
just say no to virtual backgrounds. No one believes that you're actually at the beach, my friend. No one.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's been interesting to see people really push in to do that. But I do want to talk more because your question was we kind of alluded to what I'm doing, but I know that one of the questions that you have that we got in advance was about kind of my ideas for what people can do in this
Yes.
situation. I'm lucky. This was easy for me. This was really easy for me. But obviously, this is not for a lot of people. I don't know if you've got a prepared question that you wanted to read, or I know you had emailed me one. I can riff off of it if you like.
So that was yeah, the kind of expanding on that first question was, any advice for event photographers or videographers in this time of paid work being completely cut off? How has your paid work been affected by, and we're not going to say the name because that causes major issues on YouTube's algorithms. So
Right.
that's actually a tip. Be very careful the things you say in the video, because it will actually either demonetize it or it will end up, deprioritizing it in YouTube or Facebook or any other algorithm. So we're not going to say the bad word.
Although I can't even imagine how
yeah.
anybody can have a live stream at all and not say it at this point. I mean, it's like try not to use the word "the." Go.
Yeah, we are definitely running out of ways to describe what's going on without it just sounding bleh. But yeah, so back to that question.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about that.
What advice do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already answered the second part of how it's affected my business and how I've worked around it. But I thought about this question a lot. That's why I wanted to make sure that we brought this up. This idea of an event photographer, how are you supposed, or videographer, let's just cover it. Your job is to shoot events, stills, video, doesn't matter. What are you supposed to do? Because events don't exist right now, right? That's the big challenge. And I totally get that this is a huge problem for anybody who makes their living that way. If you're a wedding photographer, videographer, if you shoot corporate events, anything like that, the stuff is just gone. And the easy thing to say is, while you may end up with a lot more free time, please spend that time educating yourself. I think that it's so easy to just be like, I'm not working right now. I'm going to catch up on this whatever show on Netflix. That's what I'm going to do. And you end up just on the couch binging show after show, movie after movie, and not actually furthering your career in any way. Take advantage of the opportunity. Take advantage of the time that you have where you're not working to get educated, to learn a new trick, learn a new trade, just learn new technique. Like for me right now, one of the big things that I really want to focus on is color grading. I've actually signed up for courses that I haven't taken yet, and I've bought training classes that I haven't watched yet because I've just been so busy. But that's something that I really want to do, and that's my next big personal education, is to learn more and more about color grading, to really, really grok it and to get really, really good at it. So education is great. Do that. Obviously, education is not going to put food on your table. So you still got to work. You still got to figure out how to make money.
Yeah.
And I realize that I am speaking from a position of not having to do this myself. So the things that I say may sound like, well, you make it sound easy, and that's easy for you to say because you already have work. But I want to share what ideas I do have. And number one thing to me is that while these events may not physically be happening, people are no longer having birthday parties and weddings and corporate gatherings, the kind of things that you might have previously been hired to shoot. These things are still happening. People are still getting married. People still have birthdays. People still need to celebrate. People still need to have this annual meeting somehow, and it might be virtual now instead of physical. But think of yourself not as a photographer or a filmmaker, cinematographer, however you call it, but think of yourself more as a content creator. And it's not about, I'm going to create fresh content at this event that is no longer happening. What content can you create for that client and get them to pay you to create that they can use at that event? Think of the wedding. Let's say you've got a couple who's got their wedding date is set. They're not going to cancel their wedding. They just now have to have it. Maybe they can actually still have it in the church, but it's just them and the pastor and immediate family who are all 12 feet apart. Can you be there documenting that, shooting it, live streaming it? What if you could get them to let you live stream the wedding so that all the people who are supposed to come can still attend? Birthday parties, okay, maybe someone's not going to throw a virtual birthday party. Oh, maybe they are. But what would they, if it's a big celebration, maybe it's your 50th birthday and you're going to have a big party and that was the plan. Well, as a content creator, work with them to get a bunch of pictures, old family photos and video content that they might have and pull together and make something for them that you can charge them for, that they can use to celebrate that event virtually. The corporate events, the same idea. They're supposed to be coming together and having meetings and powwows and yahoos to share the success of their year. They don't get to do it in person, but do they have content that they've already created that you can pull together and turn into something awesome? Have you worked for them before? Can you pull some of your existing content and put together a highlight reel? I think obviously it's not the answer for everything, but I think there's a lot of ways to reach out to these clients that you were supposed to be working with and say, look, your event X is no longer happening, but the world hasn't stopped. You still need to do these things. So how can I help you to create this and to make it awesome in a way that people can enjoy virtually? I think that's a great way to approach it. And, you might find yourself doing even more work. You might find yourself in a particular set of skills that most people don't have or aren't thinking about that you can take advantage of. I don't know. What do you think of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's kind of, I think, what is going to help everybody, in the end through this. I'm a firm believer that, clearly things are not going to ever go back to the way they were before all of this happened, right? We're going to have to be able to continue to find new ways to either do certain jobs more safely, more efficiently, and in a lot of cases, I think a lot of people are finding that virtual interactions in some ways can be a lot more efficient. So actually just getting
Sure.
into it and knowing that whatever you do learn throughout this period is only going to help you when we come to the other side of this. Find new ways to offer products to your clients, find new ways to reach out to the community, find new ways to advertise and brand that are much lower cost and impact to your bottom line than they necessarily would be if you went, maybe more traditional routes for those things. And
Sure.
you mentioned something at the beginning, when you were describing how your YouTube channel started, that it was, it started as a marketing and a branding kind of thing for your video archives. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for a lot of people, if you try that path first by addressing this as a way to brand and market yourself, get your message out there, who you are, you're probably going to end up having a lot more fun and an easier time doing it than necessarily starting right at the top and saying, well, I need to do this and I have to make money immediately doing this right away. Because then it does just become another task and another job. If you get comfortable being in front of camera, and for a lot of photographers and videographers that I know, us being in front of camera is probably one of the worst feelings that some people have. But, doing it for a fun reason first, getting yourself planted in this kind of experience of talking into a camera instead of talking face to face, and using it as a method to even just put out videos that explain who you are, what you offer, what your, conversations like this, what inspires you to be a photographer or videographer, that'll help you become super natural at having a conversation, becoming more collected in your thoughts, which is one of those things that I still have to work on. But this kind of activity, using a platform like YouTube or, even just recording videos and loading them into YouTube, is a good way to get yourself planted in this. So the question I had about that was, when it comes to platforms, what's your preferred platform for this kind of activity? I know you're big on YouTube, but have you tried other platforms as well?
Sure. I actually started on Facebook because Facebook Live became a thing, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. Facebook Live became a thing. And I saw this get launched, and I'd seen so many other photographers, filmmakers, whatever, people that I admired in the industry, that I'd seen them jump onto stuff and just take off, right? And really skyrocket with it. And you're going, oh, that's a good idea. I want to get on there too, but you get on there too late. And so when Facebook Live became a thing, I thought, I'm getting on now. And I was on pretty early on Facebook Live. But I quickly ran into some of the technical limitations of Facebook Live. It's only 720p. It was back then. I kind of think it still is, unless you're a company. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, 720p, that's a drag. If I'm doing any kind of software demo, it's kind of okay for talking head, fine, whatever. But if I'm going to do a software demo, 720p is way too low resolution. That's no good. The search and discovery in Facebook is just not really there. And so eventually I migrated over to YouTube. And YouTube, of course, is all about search and discovery. People search in, that YouTube, I'm probably going to get the stat wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is accurate. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. That's incredible. Google being the first one, and obviously they control both. So that's pretty impressive. People go there. Nobody goes to Facebook to search, how do I change the oil in my car? That's not something you're going to search on Facebook. That's something you're going to search on YouTube. So if you're providing education, then YouTube is clearly a better platform for this. I have tried other platforms. I stream whenever I do a live stream, and my live stream now is completely different than what it used to be. The live stream used to be the main show, and I was simultaneously streaming to Facebook, to YouTube, to Twitch, to what's it called, Periscope, I guess, on Twitter. You can kind of using a restreamer, restream.io is a service I use. I can stream out to multiple places, but when you look at the numbers, it's 95% on YouTube. And that's just where people are for this kind of thing. And so that's what I focus on. If I was a gamer, it'd be different. If a gamer on Twitch, no brainer, but YouTube's been the platform for me. And so that's the one that I've really embraced. And everything else is kind of a side thing, right? My streaming content delivery platform is YouTube. Yeah, I put stuff on Facebook, Twitch, whatever else, but it's really YouTube. And same with social media. My social media platform is Twitter. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, but Twitter is where it's at. And that's where I focus on.
Cool, cool. So there was another question that came up prior to when we were setting up this event that I'm very curious to hear about what your take on this is and how you stay creative, and it's what helps you stay creative with photography. And then a second part of that was, what is your desert island Panasonic LUMIX camera and lens setup?
All right, so we'll start with the first one.
Yeah.
To stay creative, I think influence of other content, and it's a very dangerous thing to compare yourself to other photographers, other creators, to look at what other people are shooting on Instagram, on 500px, whatever, to look at what other people are creating on YouTube. It can be a very dangerous road, because you can look at a channel like MKBHD, for example, which is shot on 8K red cameras with the best sound, the best lighting, the best everything, robot arms for cameras, like everything, right? He's got millions of dollars worth of gear to make the show the way he's making it. And you're like, it's a YouTube channel. It's a YouTube show. Who cares? But it matters, right? His quality is a big part of his attraction. Frankly, I watch his stuff because of the quality. I don't really care about every new cell phone that comes out. I watch it because it looks so good and is so well produced. That to me is very inspiring, but it can also be very dangerous, because if you look at that and you're like, oh, well, I can't create that. I don't have that kind of camera, that kind of lighting, and that kind of sound. So I'm just not even going to bother. That's a bad road to go down. But you have to remember that everybody starts from zero, and unless you've got some big corporate sponsor that's going to build out a studio for you, you're starting in your bedroom, and then you're moving up to a spare bedroom, and then you're getting better and better over time. And so watching those channels is, to me, very inspirational. The ones who are doing content at a higher level than I am, it's very inspirational, but you have to be careful that you don't let it depress you. You got to look at it and go, man, they're good. Okay, they've been doing it longer than I have. They got 10 times the following, so that means they've got a bigger budget than I do. I get it. I'm going to do everything that I can within my budget, within my power, to increase my skill set to make it look better and better. And I am constantly striving to make the shows better, to make them look better, sound better, flow better, everything that goes into making a show. And making those really good quality productions do matter. And a big reason for me that I really push for it, it's not because, oh, I want to have the best YouTube show out there, I want to have the best looking color, the best looking whatever show. It's a way for me to keep learning. We talked about educating yourself now in the downtime, but it should be an ongoing process. You should always be trying to get better and to learn. And by doing that for the YouTube channel, which at the end of the day, who really cares if I got the perfect color grade on my YouTube channel? Well, clients care when I create for them. And if clients can watch my YouTube videos and go, oh, this guy knows how to light, this guy knows how to do this, that, and the other thing, and his videos look good, then I can turn that into a client job and say, yeah, I can make a video for you that looks like this. And the only way I can do that is because I've done hundreds of these videos, every time trying to make it just a little bit better than last time, trying to just take that next little baby step. Hundreds and hundreds of baby steps later, I've taken a couple pretty big steps. And if you compare what I'm doing today to what I did 3 years ago, I mean, it's what I did 6 months ago, it's night and day. And that's a huge part of it. And that's how I stay creative, is by watching these other content creators, looking what they're doing and going, man, that's really good. Wow, what you did there, oh, brilliant. Okay, now I got to figure out how does that apply to me? That is so inspiring, so good. I want to figure out something like that. Or maybe I don't even do something like that. It's just inspired me to take something in a different direction. Oh, interesting. I like the way you did that. That makes me think about doing this. And that's a big part of it for me.
Yeah, and with channels, like you were mentioning MKBHD and stuff like that. I think it's fascinating to go in the YouTube, like in their videos, not like a playlist or anything like that, and sort by oldest. Most of those top tier, content creators, they make sure to leave up the original videos that they did, the early
Yeah,
videos there. It's so cool to
sure.
go back, look at some of the first ones that they did, and kind of see how they grew over time, because it really does show how just with continual effort and just sticking with it, like it's gonna get tough sometimes, but just stick with it, and you'll see that it will grow exponentially once you get into a rhythm. And I think you also have to be like
Yeah.
very true to your style too. It's cool to take other people's influence and kind of
Yes.
understand their approach to things, but once you get the technique down of, okay, how do they address camera, how do they set up their studio, take that but don't copy it, because when you copy it, it does
Right.
just become additional. It's just another thing out there. Put your spin on it.
Absolutely. It has to be you. You got to be true to you and make give it your voice. That said, I think trying to copy someone's style for your own personal education can be very powerful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Again, MKBHD as an example, he just retweeted a video that a young guy in India who decided that in all this lockdown time that he has, he's going to try and recreate one of Marquez's openings. He had this opening shot. I think it was an iPhone video, and it was this really quite cleverly shot, appears to be a top-down view or appears to be a side view of a phone, and all these things move out of the way and everything spins. It was a very kind of three-dimensional stuff moving, really kind of cool, really well coordinated. You're like, oh, that was really neat, right? And so this young guy goes, well, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And he did a whole video of the behind the scenes of him making it. And it's literally, he's propping up uh, uh, objects against the chair with a clamp lamp and like all this kind of really cheap stuff, and using his phone with a piece of cardboard as the background and trying to recreate it. And it's not because he wants to show that he can do the same thing or to copy it exactly. It's to learn how to do it, because by trying to copy it, you will learn so much. And then you figure it out and you go, okay, now I get it. Now apply that knowledge to my own thing. Don't ever release that as your own work, that copy. This guy's case, he was showing how he copied it, so that's different. But as far as, oh, I'm going to now do all my openings like that, just like Marquez did because it looked really good and I figured it out, please figure it out and then put your own twist on it, do your own thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of going in with that, and then since there's a ton of questions that we've been asked, so we've been going through, some of what the community has been asking us. What do you have, like, is there any like kind of big project you've got going on that you're allowed to talk about, during this time down,
Sure.
that you've got time to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. One that the clients watching right now, they're going to be like, yeah, when are you going to get back to that? So I know you're familiar with,
Sorry, man.
with LumaFusion, I know you're familiar with LumaFusion, the video editor on iOS.
Mm-hmm.
You've played with it before, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Super powerful video editor on an iPad. Like, it's just incredible, right? And so I've been doing training videos for them, and I did a big batch of them that were released at the end of last year, and I've done a couple of little ones in between, but I have a whole bunch more that I'm supposed to be working on right now. And if you're watching, I promise I'm working on it. But that's a big ongoing project that still has quite a bit of production in front of it to do. So there's that. I just did, well, I know you saw it because Panasonic ended up using it as well, but I did a video around the Panasonic Atomos announcement that happened last week for
Mm-hmm.
S1H RAW with the Ninja 5. And leading up to that, it's kind of funny because the video that I created that was initially created for Atomos hired me to do it, and then we joined up with Panasonic on it as well, was kind of an announcement, just a general, this is what it is. And the video, when you watch it, it's actually pretty straightforward and simple. It's me on camera talking. I show a couple things on the device. I show a couple things in software, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. And you think, okay, well, that didn't, it was no big deal to produce. And it wasn't from the moment that I hit record to actually delivered. It was maybe, I don't know, day and a half, something like that. but it took weeks to get there because so much working with pre-release hardware, pre-release software, combining this together, learning about this new raw process and workflow. It took an incredible amount of work to get there. And I still have other videos that I'm going to produce based off of that knowledge, but I had to do all of that to make that simple video. And so that's something that I just finished up, but I'm actually working on another video for Atomos right now that will get released next week. So you watch out for that one. So the projects like that are going on right now. I'm working with I have to leave names out because I'm not sure how much this is public, but I'm working with a company in New York who's going to be live streaming, let's just say, productions. We'll just leave it at that. And so I'm consulting with them to help them figure out how to live stream, but this is on a very high-end level, not just Zoom and a webcam, but a kind of very high-end level live stream. So I'm working with a company like that right now. So that, there's stuff like that that's going on that's super exciting.
Nice.
And I love that, right? I love consulting at that level to help companies take what they're doing to the next level. At the end of the day, my favorite thing to be doing is to be in there shooting. I want to be shooting and editing, creating videos and getting them out. But doing this other stuff helps me to expand that knowledge. I'm going to get paid to refine a process that maybe I would have done on my own anyway, but certainly not at that high level. But I will learn so much about this by putting this together for the client, taking all the different pieces of things that I already know and then things that I don't yet know and putting that together. That in itself is an incredible thing. And while it's not my main thing sitting out there shooting, it is still a lot of fun and a really interesting project to work on.
Cool. So let's
talk about that desert island camera.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. So Joseph.
Yeah.
If you were stranded on a desert island, not a desert island, a desert island, what would be your
on a desert
go-to
island?
camera?
That sounds like fun.
You could try eating a rock, but it won't it really won't work.
I want a camera big enough and waterproof enough that I can turn it into a boat and float home. How's that sound? Is that not the answer you're looking for?
It's kind of a cop-out
there's
answer,
a couple different answers to this. I'll give you a couple of different answers. There's my favorite camera combination for completely casual, non-client work. I'm gonna go on a trip. I'm gonna travel. I want to shoot stills, maybe shoot a little bit of video, but it's really about stills. And I want something discreet, lightweight, small that I can just easily carry with me everywhere. And there's never the, should I bring the camera with me question? Because it's always there. And that's that good old GX85, the one you brought up earlier for the New Orleans shoot. It's such a tiny little camera. And you pair that with the 15mm Leica lens. And that is just, for me, the 15mm is a perfect street photography focal length. Obviously, different people who do street photography have different opinions of what the right focal length for them is, but I love that 15, so a 30mm equivalent in full frame. And it's such a tiny little package, and the horizontal flip up screen, I love it. That's my perfect take everywhere little camera. But if we're gonna go full on, you're on stranded on an island and you only have one camera and somehow you have an internet connection to upload content. Quite sure how that would work, and yet not email for help. I mean, I'm going to say the S1H because it's now. Right. The S1H is just, it's insane. That camera is so awesome. And obviously I'm an ambassador, so of course I'm going to tell you it's awesome, but it really is an incredible piece of kit. And it's an expensive piece of kit compared to something like the GX85. But the quality of the image out of that, the 6K shooting, which is a big deal for me because I want to deliver 4K. I always want to deliver 4K, but I like to have the flexibility to crop and push in, especially if I'm doing like the production that I'm working on right now. I've got a camera, the S1H, pointed at an area where I'm doing stuff with products, right? And if I shoot it in 4K, I really can't punch into that at all if I want to deliver in 4K. But by shooting in 6K, I now have some flexibility. So if I want to kind of zoom in a little bit to something that's on a screen or a detail on the product, I have that capability to punch in a little bit, almost 50%. And that's enormous to me, and to still be able to deliver in 4K. It's the same idea that we had before. If you shoot in 4K and edit in 1080p and you can do a 200% push, and that's amazing. Love that, but now I want to deliver in 4K. And so that gives me that flexibility to do that, to still get that push. So that's remarkable. And it makes for a great still camera as well. A little big, but it's a great still camera as well. So I'm just gonna be like, that's my dream camera because it's awesome.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So let's jump to some of the questions. Now these are we always want people who are tuning into this, and even if you can't actually tune into it live, basically ask the questions that you guys have. It doesn't necessarily have to pertain specifically to the topic that we're covering here, or even specific to Joseph or myself. Just what kind of questions you have, and we actually have a couple of them queued up. So if you're cool,
Let's hear 'em.
one of the questions we got here is, what's the best gimbal for video use for video using the G9, and what's your opinion on the 25 1.7?
Okay, so I'm not much of a gimbal user, so I'm not the one to ask for the best one. I bought the DJI Ronin SC, I think that was it, at the end of last year, and I've barely used it, but I got it because I'd just come off of a production where I wished that I'd had one, and so I thought, screw it, I'm gonna buy a good gimbal. And I just haven't gotten much use out of it. It's the kind of thing, because I shoot by myself, I can't really use it in my own productions in the studio, unless I want to do like a little B-roll with it, but that I just end up hand holding. But that I did a lot of research and asked a bunch of people on Twitter and got a kind of a consensus opinion. And that one really came out on top. So I would definitely recommend looking at that. It fits the G9 beautifully. I balanced the G9 with the 12mm lens, and I think the 8-18 on there as well. And it's a good combination. It's a good size package. So I would definitely look at that Ronin SC. That would be the one to check out. The lens. What was the lens that you asked about? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I have no idea if I've lost him or if he's lost me. Well, I think I'm just going to start talking just in case I'm still alive on the air. I'm going to look down here to see if Sean starts freaking out in the window that I can see him in but can't hear him in. And I'm just going to text him right now to say, I don't hear you, just in case he is wondering what's going on. I can type, I don't hear you. We'll let him go with that. We'll see what happens. It's looking like he can hear me. Very odd. Very odd indeed. I wonder, could it be entirely possible? Sean, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Aha. Okay.
Aha.
I
There
got
we
you. Let me
go.
turn this down. I'll bet I know what happened. I'll bet. Nope. I wonder if I was thinking my wireless mic receiver pack went dead, but nope, it's still running.
It
You
was
do
me.
hear me, yes? Oh, it was you. Oh, it was you. Well, in that case, I'm putting my headphones back in.
So what's
There we go, that's better.
great about these, and actually this is I think a good example for a lot of people, is live streaming and doing all of this stuff, especially when you may not have the best setup for it. These kinds of things are always going to happen. So finding ways to make sure that you're able to jump back from it. In this case, my dog decided to lean into the mic pack and knock it to mute.
Oh man.
But
Brutal.
like, super important takeaway from stuff like this is, even if something like this happens, not getting super flustered and just kind of going with it. These things just, if anything, show you that we actually are doing this live. This isn't like a pre-recorded thing. So
Because who would possibly leave that in on a recording?
But
live is hard, man. Live is hard. I've been doing live for a long time, and I'll say that I'm good at it, and it's still hard. I make mistakes all the time. When you're switching, when you're controlling everything, when you're controlling the picture and the sound and the switching and trying to pull up the right source while also demoing and talking about whatever you're talking about, it's easy to make mistakes. And I've got a series of buttons in front of me to switch angles, and I still hit the wrong button sometimes. I'm like, oh man, I just went to black. Like, really? Come on, dummy. What was that? I hit the button that says 4, not the one next to it that says black. Like, what was I thinking? Anyway, so live is hard. Anyway, so back to the question. So what were the lenses that was on that list?
So the lens in this one was the 25mm 1.7.
The 25-1.7. Isn't it a 1.4? Is it a 1.7? The Leica?
So there's the Leica 1.4, and we have the LUMIX 1.7 version.
Oh, okay. So that's your nifty 50 low cost lens. I've actually never shot with that one. I don't have an opinion on it.
For what it's worth, I've shot a lot with it as well. From working for the company, and actually, hang on one second, my dog wants to leave the room. So
Close the door.
this is the fun part of being the only one home with a dog. At least a kid kind of has some consciousness to know that you're doing. No? Okay.
No.
So yeah, back to the lens. The 25 1.7, it's basically, that great all around lightweight, compact, 50 millimeter field of view lens that really goes perfect for pretty much every kind of camera you want to throw it on. Whether you're throwing it on something like a GH5 or that GX camera, it gives you that shallow depth of field because it's a 1.7. It's got a really solid focusing motor in it for video use, so you're not going to run into situations where you hear the lens motor racking through focus.
Right.
And it's well optically controlled. It's really nice and sharp for a 50 millimeter lens, and it's a great price for something if you want to expand into, out of a kit lens, or you want something that's just being able to do those shallow depth of field portraits that you may not be able to do with your current kit.
What does it retail for?
I think it's like $299 or $199, something like that. Okay. If I was better prepared, I would have the price set up, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. And I use the 25-1.4, the Leica one. So obviously a little bit shallower depth of field, a little bit better low light gathering capability, presumably a sharper lens because it's the Leica. But yeah, I know, that the nifty 50 idea, having that 50 millimeter equivalent focal length, is something everybody should have in their bag. And if the Leica one is out of your price range, then it sounds like this one is a great alternative.
Yeah. So the next question I had over here was, says, I'm a new user of the GH5. What are some of the lenses I should be looking at in order to get into documentary style interview and B-roll shooting?
Okay. I would say go for the basics. Your 12 to 35 and the 35 to 100. Those are both f2.8. They're very consistent, very clean lenses. They give you that really wide range of focal length from a 24 to 200 equivalent. And it's kind of two lenses that will do it all. It's not the shallowest depth of field ever. For that, you're going to want to go to primes, and you can start building up your prime collection once you get these. But if you're looking for two starter lenses, it's just a beautiful way to go. Those were my first pairing to go with shooting video. And in fact, the lens that I'm using right now is the 12 to 35 f2.8 that you're looking at me through right here. It's just a great lens. It's great, and a great combination, a great pairing.
Nice. So let me see here. A couple other statements instead of questions. So I think we're going to skip the statements for right now.
Any comments about my hair?
It's looking a little wild. I mean, how's mine? I mean, I shaved at least. Although Texas is opening back up, so who knows? Maybe I'll be able to actually get a haircut eventually.
There you go.
Yeah. So looking at this, it looks like we've got most of the questions that were sent over, at least over to me, so I can get them over here. One other question here: how frequently does Panasonic introduce firmware updates? Fairly frequently. For that question was from Christopher. We typically will push firmware updates when they're substantial enough. Bug fixes, obviously, firmware updates will always do bug fixing if something is brought up and found. But if you're subscribed onto the Panasonic LUMIX email group, if you're on obviously following us here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you're following any of the ambassadors like Joseph, when we have firmware updates, they'll be the ones that know, and typically we'll be putting out some kind of walkthroughs on like what they do, what's important about it, which is actually a good segue because there's a number of questions that people ask about firmware updates, specifically in how to do them. And if I remember right, I think you have a video on that, don't you, Joseph?
I release a video on how to do it pretty much every time there is a major firmware update, because people will always, even if I did a video that was just about here's what's new, go watch another video about how to do the update. Everybody will ask in the comments, yeah, but how do I do the update? So it's easier to just show how to do it every time. So these
Yeah.
videos get a little repetitive because the procedure doesn't change. But every time there's a major update, I will release a video about not only what's in it, but how to do it, and I'll walk through the process. So obviously you're going to want to get the latest update for whatever camera it is that you're trying to update. But if you just go to my channel and you search, let's say search for GH5 update, and probably sort by date to make sure you're looking at the most recent one, not the most viewed one, then you'll see it. But again, the procedure hasn't changed. The procedure is different between the G series and the S series, so that's different. But any G series camera you have or any S series camera you have will have the same. So you find any of those videos, and the procedure is the same. It's just that I might be talking about an older update. And to answer the question that everybody asks every time, you do not have to incrementally update. If you've got, I don't know, say 1.0 and there's been a 1.1 and 1.2, 1.3, and now there's a 1.5, and you want to update to that, you can go straight to 1.5. Don't worry about it. Just go straight in. You get that question all the time.
Oh yeah. And talking about firmware, you want to give us some of your experiences, since you touched on it before that you've been working with Atomos and with Panasonic here on the ProRes RAW support on the S1H. You want to give some people a little little info on your experiences with it so far?
Yeah, it's incredible. The big thing that I've been pushing with and learning more about is HDR delivery, which you don't have to shoot RAW to do HDR. You can get HDR from log. So as long as you're shooting log, you can do it. But with the raw file, you've got kind of more of everything. And it's been a great workflow. It was my first experience really working with raw. You hear all these stories of shooting with other raw formats where you have to convert the footage first and work with a proxy and so on. But ProRes RAW, the beauty of that is that, at least if you're a Final Cut editor, although I think they announced recently that they're bringing it to Premiere, you can edit directly on the timeline. Just drop your raw clips on and away you go. And as I showed in the demo video that I did, the launch video, it's kind of remarkable because you drop it on, and the first thing that has to happen is raw has to get converted to log, and then unless you want to look at it in log, you have to add a LUT to it. But these two things happen automatically as soon as you import the footage. It just automatically gets that applied. So the workflow of working with raw is virtually no different than working with any other footage. It's essentially the exact same workflow. The only thing that you really want to do is set up your project, even if you're delivering standard def project, even if you're delivering an SDR, not HDR, is to set up your Final Cut project as a wide gamut library. And that will give you a little bit more control over those extreme highs and lows when you're doing your grade and doing your exposure corrections. So I would definitely recommend that. So that's, if you're not familiar with it, when you create a new library in Final Cut, and it's a whole library thing. This is not a project setting. This is a library setting. So you create a new library, call it your wide gamut library if you want, so you know which one it is. And then after you create the library, you can't do this while you're creating it. I don't know why, but after you create the library and you hit OK, then you open up the library settings, and there's a box there that says standard something and wide gamut. Wide gamut is the one you want. Again, even if you're not delivering HDR, you do it as a wide gamut library, and now you've got a bit more control over the highlights and shadows. It's been fun. I mean, working with RAW has been tremendous. I've been able to push grades in directions that I've never done before. The first project I worked on, which was really early firmware, so like the white balance wasn't quite right in the out of camera, and so I had to adjust all that. And then once I got it set and I'm pushing, I'm like, okay, we're going to take the green to here. Let's take it to here. Okay, we can take it to here. Oh my God, the file's not breaking apart. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's see if we got one or so more question, and then I think we will we'll call it for today, because we've been going for about an hour.
I saw one that I want to grab, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just flipping through the Facebook comments. Ed Starkey had asked, says, I have an S1H and a GH5S. Everyone always talks about video with legacy adapted lenses, but what about for stills? Absolutely, Ed. I love, can I do this? Okay, I'm gonna give you a sneak peek. You ready? So
Yeah, there you
there's
go.
my studio right now. See that wall of gear? Yeah, yeah. That's set up for the project that I'm in the middle of shooting. It's insane right now. I have actually used every single camera I have, which is a lot of them for this production. Scary. Anyway, I have a couple of those shelves, those cube shelves are full of vintage lenses. And a lot of them are like $20, $30 eBay finds. And some of them are junk and I'll probably never really use them. But every one of them has unique characteristics to it, which are just as relevant for still photography as they are for video. I um, I really enjoy some of the older lenses with a particular bokeh pattern or just a nice creaminess around the edges. Some of them look really nice for skin tones. There's now this is adapting for the S series for the full frame. There's an 80 millimeter Mamiya lens. It's a f1.8, 80 mil f1.8, I think is right, that is for medium format, that is reduced down to fit on full frame. So this is the same as taking a full frame lens and reducing it from micro four thirds. This is medium format, reducing down to full frame. And the image that you get out of that is very shallow depth of field, because once it's reduced, if it's 1.8 is times 1 times 0.7, whatever that works out to like f1.3 or something. And you end up with this really shallow depth of field with this very beautiful creamy skin, very soft bokeh, just really, I love it. And that kind of thing is so cool to play with. And again, you can get cheap lenses. You can get cheap lenses and cheap adapters. Some of the adapters require glass in them, so you have to have a focal reducer. So let's say that you buy a full frame, let's just say like a vintage Canon lens. There's a 50 millimeter, I think f1.4 that is really popular. You can get for pretty cheap, has a nice look to it. You can adapt that to micro four thirds without any glass in there, but you're not going to get the full capability to the lens. There's focal reducers, which of course will cost more, that will kind of focus that full frame of the image, the full field of view of the image into that smaller sensor and give you more of the capabilities of that. So different adapters to look at, but absolutely using them for stills. I love them. If you happen to see the pictures that I posted at the end of last year, I went to Taiwan. I was in Taipei for a few days, and I shot with the S1.8 and the S1 and I'm forgetting the name of the lens now. I don't remember. It's hashtagged in all the pictures, but look for the Taipei photos, all shot with a vintage lens, all manual focus, all manual control, which is fine by me. And I love the images that I got out of it. I adore it. So absolutely, if you like the idea of vintage lenses, go get some. Start on eBay. There's a bunch of them. Do your research on which are the best. Sometimes you'll look at a lens, you'll learn about a lens, and you'll think, oh, I really want that. And you go look on eBay and you're like, well, I can find it for $50 or $500. What's the difference? You'll find that that lens might have been made for years and has different generations of that lens. And for whatever reason, generation 5 of that lens, that's the one that you want. That's the good one. But that's the one that's $500. Generation 8, that for whatever reason, quality control went out the window, or they changed some component and nobody likes it as much, that's the one you can get for $50. So you just got to do your research. It's a whole different world. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I want to thank you for taking time out of your morning out there, to sit here and just kind of, entertain our fans, our customers, photographers, videographers, myself. I was fairly entertained, and share some of your experiences with us. Can you let everyone know that's watching where they can find you, where they can find your work, and then we'll make sure to put some links down in the comments when we repost this
absolutely.
up.
So it's easy to find me. It's Photo Joseph absolutely everywhere. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Photo Joseph is the same name everywhere. Makes it nice and simple. So I certainly would encourage you, if you're not already subscribed, to subscribe over at youtube.com/PhotoJoseph. That's where all the video content goes. And Instagram, I post photos on Instagram, although I haven't much lately. And Twitter, again, all Photo Joseph. There's always good conversation over on Twitter. But if you want to reach out direct, Twitter's definitely the best way to do it. Just hit me up on Twitter, and I'm pretty good at responding there. And even in YouTube comments as well. If you direct message me, I'll tell you this right now. If you direct message me with a question, I'm going to send back an autoresponder that says, "Don't ask me here, ask me publicly," and then I'll try to get your question there. Yeah, I can't be tech support for the world, but I'm happy to help people. But I want to help people publicly. I want to help it where other people can benefit from the information as well. So, but yeah, Photo
cool.
Joseph everywhere, and definitely on YouTube. And
Nice.
photojoseph.com. See, it's everywhere. It's the same everywhere.
Hey, there you go. It's kind of like you have this branding thing down.
I know, right? Who knew?
Well, like I said, I want to thank you for taking the time, talking with us, kind of sharing your experiences. I want to thank everyone that tuned in. I understand from reading through some of the comments, there was a little bit of challenge getting in this morning for some people. Do not worry, this entire stream is recorded, so we do post these up afterwards on the LUMIX Cameras Facebook, YouTube page rather. So you'll always have access to this, and kind of go back to that point that maybe there was a question answered that you didn't hear live. Feel free to keep posting questions either here or when we do post it up onto the YouTube page. We will try to answer as many of them as we can, and keep the interaction going. I want to let everyone know that we will be doing another one of these next week. Like we said on last week's stream, we're kind of making this a weekly, kind of event for Panasonic. So make sure to keep an eye out on the Facebook page here for details on where to find the next stream. Be sure to check onto the email list if you're someone who is looking about firmware updates, where we will be sending out updates about the firmware, especially if you're one of those S1H users and you're really excited for the version 2.0 firmware. Get subscribe to Joseph, follow him, check out some of his other videos too that he's put up there. I know there was a 5-part one that you and I did last time with the GH5. So
yeah, that was fun.
There's tons of content out there. I want everyone to keep safe. Make sure you're trying to keep your creativity going, but in a safe manner. And we'll see you guys next week. All right, take care, everyone.